I never meant to fall for my best friend. It just happened. Slowly, like the way shadows stretch across the pavement at sunset. One moment, we were just two kids who happened to sit next to each other in homeroom, and the next, Shane had become the person I couldn't imagine my life without. We met in high school, thrown together by the cruel randomness of assigned seating. He was the guy everyone noticed. Tall, broad shoulders, an easy lopsided grin that made girls giggle in the hallways. Shane played football, but he wasn't the typical jock. He wasn't arrogant or mean. He had this effortless charm, the kind that made him friends with everyone. Nerds, athletes, theater kids, and somehow me. I was the quiet one, more into books and movies than sports. I never quite fit into a specific crowd, but with Shane, I didn't have to. He just pulled me into his world, dragging me to parties, forcing me to watch every game he played, and treating me like I belonged, even when I wasn't sure that I did. I never told him how I felt. Not when we were 16, lying on his bed, talking about life while he threw a football up and caught it absent-mindedly. Not when he ruffled my hair after a bad breakup, telling me I deserved better. And definitely not when he stripped his sweaty jersey off after a game, completely unaware of the effect he had on me. I told myself it was just a crush, that it would fade. But then came college, and Shane and I stuck together. Roommates, best friends, inseparable. It didn't matter how many girls he dated, or how many times I had to sit there, pretending it didn't tear me apart. I convinced myself that this, his friendship, was enough. Shane had no idea. Not about the way I sometimes caught myself staring too long. Not about how my heart stammered every time he threw an arm around my shoulders. Not about how I memorized the way he laughed or the way his eyes crinkled when he was deep in thought, and he definitely didn't know that. No matter how much I tried to move on, he was the only person I had ever really wanted. For years, I thought I could live with it. This quiet, unspoken longing. But then, one night, Shane walked into my room at the wrong time. And everything changed. It had been a while since Shane and I had spent a full weekend just hanging out like we used to. College, work, life. Things had a way of pulling us in different directions. But every now and then, we'd make time. This weekend was one of those times. Shane was crashing at my apartment for the next 2 days. A tradition we started back in high school. No plans, no expectations, just video games, takeout, and talking until we passed out. It was supposed to be simple. It had always been simple, but it didn't feel simple anymore. The moment Shane walked in, dropping his duffel bag onto my couch, he stretched his arms behind his head, his shirt riding up just enough to expose the sharp definition of his abs. My throat went dry, but I forced myself to play it cool. Still skipping leg day, I see, I teased, tossing a pillow at him. He caught it mid-air, smirking. Jealous? I rolled my eyes, trying to ignore the way my stomach twisted. Jealous? No. Tortured? Maybe. He made himself at home, kicking off his sneakers and collapsing onto my bed like it was his own. Man, I needed this. Work has been kicking my ass. I sat on the floor pretending to scroll through my phone. Yeah? Maybe you should quit and become a full-time freeloader at my place. Shane chuckled. Tempting. You'd cook for me, right? Not a chance. He grinned, throwing an arm behind his head, his shirt lifting just a little more. I forced my eyes away, focusing on anything but the way his muscles tensed as he stretched. This was always the hardest part. How effortlessly comfortable he was around me. How he never thought twice about changing his shirt in front of me, sitting too close on the couch, or falling asleep with his head on my shoulder after one too many beers. It was just Shane being Shane. For him, our friendship was easy. For me, it was constant restraint. As the night went on, we fell into our usual rhythm. Trash-talking over video games, arguing over which pizza toppings were superior, and laughing until our stomachs hurt. At some point, Shane got up, pulling his hoodie over his head and tossing it onto the floor. Dude, I groaned, averting my gaze. You ever heard of personal space? What? He looked down at himself, completely unbothered. It's just us, not like I haven't done this a million times before. And that was the problem. It wasn't new. Shane had always been like this. Comfortable in his own skin, never thinking twice about how it might affect me. Whatever, I muttered, trying to focus on the game, but my brain was useless. I needed to pull it together. It's just a weekend. You've done this before. Don't make it weird. But then came the moment that would change everything. The moment neither of us could take back. Because a few hours later, Shane walked into my room at the exact wrong time. And suddenly, nothing felt simple anymore. Steam curled through the bathroom as I stepped out of the shower, warm droplets trailing down my skin. I reached for a towel, running it through my damp hair before wrapping it around my waist. My mind was still clouded from the hot water, and I wasn't thinking. I should have locked the door. I was halfway to my dresser when it happened. The door swung open. "Hey, Logan, do you—" Shane's voice cut off mid-sentence. Time slowed. I turned sharply, my heart slamming against my ribs. For a split second, neither of us moved. My towel, which had been barely hanging onto my hips, slipped an inch lower, dangerously close to total disaster. Shane stood frozen in the doorway, eyes locked onto me. My brain short-circuited. Move. Cover yourself. Say something. Anything. But I couldn't. A rush of heat spread over my face, my body betraying me in ways I didn't even understand. This wasn't the first time Shane had seen me shirtless. Hell, we'd been on the same swim team back in high school. But this was different, because I was completely naked, and because Shane wasn't looking away. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but no words came. His gaze flickered down, too quickly, too subtle for someone who wasn't interested. But I caught it. It happened in a second. A glance, a hesitation, then finally, his eyes met mine. Something shifted in his expression. Something unreadable. My pulse roared in my ears. Shane. He blinked, like he just realized what he was doing. His jaw tightened, and suddenly, he was moving, stepping back, clearing his throat. Shit. Sorry, man. I didn't, I should have knocked. His voice was different. Tense. Not like Shane. He didn't meet my gaze as he fumbled for the door handle, stepping back into the hallway. But just before he left, he hesitated. One last glance. Then the door closed, and I was left standing there, heart pounding, towel barely clinging to my waist, and 1,000 thoughts racing through my head. Silence. I stared at the door, still gripping the towel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. What the hell just happened? It wasn't the fact that Shane had walked in. That could be laughed off, a stupid mistake, no big deal. It was the way he looked at me. Not just embarrassed, not just awkward. Something else. I exhaled, running a hand over my face. My skin was still flushed, but I didn't know if it was from the heat of the shower or something else entirely. Was I imagining it? Overthinking? I knew Shane, knew his expressions, his moods, his easygoing demeanor. But this wasn't normal. A knock on the door jolted me. "You good?" Shane's voice was muffled, uncertain. I swallowed, gripping the edge of the sink for support. "Yeah, totally good. Nothing weird at all." "Yeah," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just, getting dressed." Pause. A long one. Then, "Okay. Cool." His footsteps faded down the hall. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding and leaned against the sink, my reflection staring back at me in the fogged-up mirror. That wasn't normal. Shane had seen me naked. That much was obvious. But the question wasn't what happened. It was, why did it feel like something just changed between us? And why did I feel like this was only the beginning? I spent way too long in my room after it happened. I told myself I was just getting dressed, that I needed a minute to shake off the awkwardness. But really, I was stalling. My mind was racing in circles. It wasn't a big deal. It was just an accident. But then my brain would replay the moment, the way Shane had looked at me, the hesitation before he left. That look. I had seen Shane laugh in the face of embarrassment 100 times. The guy once tripped in front of a whole stadium and made a joke about it before hitting the ground. But this? He didn't laugh. When I finally forced myself to step out of my room, Shane was sitting on the couch, staring at his phone. Or at least pretending to. His knee bounced slightly, a telltale sign that his mind was somewhere else. I cleared my throat. Hey. He looked up, too quickly, like I had startled him. Oh. Hey. Silence. The air between us felt wrong. We never had silence like this. I tried to act normal, heading toward the fridge. So, what do you want to do today? Shane shrugged. I don't know, whatever. He wasn't looking at me, not really. But when I turned my back to grab a drink, I felt his gaze flicker in my direction, like he was watching. I cracked open the soda and took a sip, keeping my voice casual. So, about earlier, Shane coughed suddenly, shifting on the couch. Dude, you got any chips? I blinked. Seriously? Yeah? I think so. Cool. Gonna grab some. He stood up, too fast, and practically bolted to the kitchen, like the conversation was something physically he had to escape from. I frowned. Okay. That was weird. Shane was acting different. Not in a huge, obvious way. He wasn't avoiding me completely, but he wasn't acting normal either. There was something in the way he carried himself. Quieter, more distracted, almost too careful around me. And the glances? They weren't stopping. Every time I looked away, I felt it, his eyes on me, just for a second before he'd quickly look somewhere else. Was he uncomfortable? Grossed out? Regretting the whole weekend? I had to know. I threw myself onto the couch next to him and nudged his shoulder. Dude, seriously. What's up? Shane tensed for half a second before forcing a grin. What do you mean? I gave him a look. You're acting weird. Nah, you're acting weird, I scoffed. Oh, come on. This is me we're talking about. You don't get weird. But now you are. He didn't say anything, just stared at the TV. I sighed, deciding to just rip the Band-Aid off. Is this about earlier? Shane stiffened, and there it was, the confirmation. Look, I know it was awkward, I continued, keeping my tone light, like I wasn't freaking out inside. But it's not a big deal. I mean, we're both guys. It happens, right? Shane finally turned to me. His expression was unreadable. Yeah, sure, no big deal. He said the words, but his voice was off, like he didn't believe it. I searched his face, looking for a sign, something that would tell me what he was thinking. Was he weirded out? Or was this something else? But before I could press further, he reached for the remote and changed the subject. So, movie? Just like that, he shut the door on the conversation. I clenched my jaw, nodding. Yeah, sure, but as the movie started, I barely processed a single scene. Because even though Shane was sitting next to me, he wasn't really there, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something between us had changed forever. The weight of the day sat between us like an invisible wall. Shane had spent the whole afternoon dodging me, pretending everything was fine. But his silence said otherwise. Normally, we filled the space between us with jokes, stupid debates, or trash talk over video games. But not tonight. Tonight, there was something different in the air. So, I did the only thing that made sense. I grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the kitchen. Shane looked up as I set the bottle and 2 glasses on the coffee table. His brows lifted slightly. What's this for? I shrugged. I don't know. Thought we could talk. He hesitated, then gave a small smirk. Since when do we need alcohol to talk? We don't. I poured us both a drink. But it helps. He let out a soft chuckle and picked up his glass. Fair enough. We clinked them together before taking a sip. The burn was instant, spreading through my chest like liquid courage. For a while, we just talked about nothing. Random college memories, embarrassing moments, dumb mistakes we'd made. It felt almost normal. Almost. But then, the conversation turned. Shane stared into his glass. Ever feel like you don't really know yourself? I looked at him, surprised. He wasn't the type to get deep. That was usually my job. All the time, I admitted. Why? He exhaled, shaking his head. I don't know. Just been thinking a lot lately. About who I am, what I want, what I don't want. I set my drink down, my pulse quickening. This about earlier? His jaw tightened. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took another sip, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I won't lie, that moment, walking in on you, it messed with my head. I swallowed hard. Because it was weird? Or because I couldn't finish the sentence? My heart was beating too fast. Shane turned to me then, his gaze unreadable. Because I looked at you, and I wasn't supposed to. A rush of heat spread through my chest. The air between us thickened. The room suddenly too small. I forced out a shaky laugh. Well, I mean, hard not to look when someone's naked. Yeah, he said quietly. But it wasn't just that. His words hung in the air. My stomach flipped. I should have said something, anything, but the only thing I could do was stare at him, waiting. Finally I spoke. You ever think about things? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Like, what if things were different? Shane's eyes locked onto mine. Different how? I exhaled shakily. My hands felt clammy. Was I really doing this? I looked away, gripping my glass tighter. I don't know. Maybe if I was someone else. Maybe if I wasn't. I stopped. The words felt too heavy, too dangerous. But Shane got it. He always did. His voice was softer this time. Logan. I forced myself to meet his gaze. He searched my face like he was putting pieces together. Like something he had ignored for years was suddenly making sense. And then slowly, he reached for my hand. The touch was small. Barely anything. Just fingers, brushing against fingers, but it wrecked me. I sucked in a sharp breath, my whole body locking up. Shane didn't pull away. His thumb ghosted over my knuckles, hesitant, testing. The air between us was electric. Tell me, he said quietly. Whatever it is, just say it. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind pushing against me, daring me to jump. I swallowed. My voice was hoarse. I like you, Shane. The words were out before. I could stop them. I felt naked all over again. But this time, it wasn't my body on display. It was my heart. Shane didn't flinch, didn't laugh, didn't pull away. Instead, he tightened his fingers around mine. His eyes dropped to our hands, lingering there, as if he was realizing something in real time. When he finally looked up, his expression was unreadable. He hesitated. I think that moment in the room made me realize I've been avoiding something. My breath hitched. Like what? A pause. Then, like maybe I've been looking at you for a long time and just pretending I wasn't. Silence. Heavy, charged, unshakable. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. Shane's hand was still on mine. His fingers curled slightly like he didn't want to let go. And for the first time in years, I let myself hope. My pulse thundered, in my ears. Shane's hand was still on mine, his fingers warm, solid. Too real. I should have pulled away. I needed to. Instead, I whispered, "You're straight." It was the last defense I had, the last wall between us. Shane's grip tightened slightly, his jaw tensed, his breath uneven. And then he said the words that shattered everything. I don't know anymore. My chest squeezed. My vision blurred at the edges. This was Shane. My best friend, my safe place, the guy I had spent years pretending not to love. And now? Now, he was looking at me like I was something he had just discovered. Like maybe he had been looking for a while. I felt him move before I could react. The space between us disappeared, and then his lips brushed against mine. A soft, fleeting touch. Barely there. Like he was testing, giving me a chance to pull away. I didn't. I couldn't. Shane let out a shaky breath, and then he kissed me again. Firmer this time, slower, but full of something raw and unspoken. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a question, a confession, A breaking point. The room around us faded. The world outside stopped existing. It was just him and me. I didn't even realize I was trembling until his hand slid up my arm, steadying me. He was careful. So careful. Like he was afraid I'd break. Or maybe he was the one breaking. When we finally pulled apart, I couldn't breathe. Shane stayed close, his forehead resting lightly against mine. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Tell me to stop." I swallowed hard, my heart slamming against my ribs. I should. But when I opened my mouth, the only thing that came out was, "I don't want you to." His breath hitched. His fingers curled around mine. The line between friendship and something more had blurred completely. And for the first time, I let it. I woke up to the sound of slow, steady breathing. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Forgot what had happened. But then, I felt it. The warmth beside me. Shane. Memories from the night before crashed into me like a tidal wave. The confession. The kiss. His hands on me. His lips lingering just a little too long. I turned my head, barely breathing. Shane was lying on his back, staring at the ceiling, awake, silent. I swallowed hard. "Hey." He didn't move. Didn't look at me. A cold, sinking feeling spread through my chest. He was distant. Too distant. I forced a chuckle, trying to mask the ache in my voice. "So, about last night." Shane finally turned, but his expression was unreadable. His eyes flickered over me for half a second before shifting away. My stomach twisted. He was pulling back. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. "Was it just curiosity?" The words tasted bitter. "Was it just a mistake?" Shane's brows furrowed, and he finally met my gaze. "No." His voice was quiet but firm. "I don't regret it." Relief flooded through me until he added, "But I need time." I nodded slowly, trying to ignore the lump in my throat. "Right. Yeah. Of course." I didn't even know what I had expected. For him to wake up and suddenly know what this meant? For things to fall into place just because I had wanted them to? Shane sighed, running a hand through his hair. "This is new for me. I don't know how to handle it." I forced a smile. "It's fine. You don't have to." "I don't want to hurt you." His voice was barely above a whisper. That made my chest tighten even more. Because the truth was, I was already hurting. I nodded, pushing down everything I wanted to say. "I get it." Shane exhaled, rubbing his face before swinging his legs off the bed. He stood up, grabbing his phone from the nightstand. And just like that, the moment was over. I stayed where I was, watching his back, wondering if last night had changed everything, or if it had just set me up for heartbreak. I gave Shane space, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. The morning after, he left with a quiet, "I'll call you," and I could tell he meant it. But the days stretched into weeks, and the silence between us grew heavier. I told myself not to wait, to move on, to forget the way his lips had felt, against mine, the way his fingers had curled around my hand like he was afraid to let go. But forgetting wasn't an option, because I had loved him long before that night. And deep down, I knew, if he came back, I would still be here. Then one night, my phone buzzed. I stared at the screen. Shane. My heart leapt into my throat as I hesitated, then answered. "Hey." A pause, then a slow, shaky exhale. "Hey." His voice was quiet, uncertain, but not distant. Not like before. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then he finally said, "I haven't stopped thinking about you." I closed my eyes, my grip tightening around the phone. "Yeah?" My voice came out hoarse. "Yeah." A soft chuckle. "It's kind of messing me up, actually." Something between a laugh and a sob caught in my throat. "Welcome to my world," Shane sighed. "I don't have all the answers yet. I still don't know what this means for me, for us." A pause. "But I know I don't want to lose you." Tears burned at the edges of my eyes. "So what do we do?" Shane was quiet for a moment. Then, We take it slow. No labels, no pressure. Just us. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Hope. It was small, fragile, but it was there. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Yeah, I think I can do that. His voice softened. Good. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were still questions, still things left unsaid. But for the first time, Shane wasn't running, and maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real, something worth waiting for.